Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Challenges, Opportunities, and Reflections in ELT 2021 International Congress, in which the School of Pedagogy of National and Foreign Languages and the REP, Red Ecuatoriana of Pedagogía, endorsed by the Universidad Nacional de Educación, UNAE, join forces to provide people inside and outside the country with the latest information regarding English language teaching. Muy buenos días y sean bienvenidos a este Congreso Internacional de Desafíos, Oportunidades y Reflexiones sobre la Enseñanza del Inglés en el 2021. Para esta ocasión, la Escuela de Pedagogía de los Idiomas Nacionales y Extranjeros y la Red Ecuatoriana de Pedagogía, respaldados por la Universidad Nacional de Educación UNAE, han unido fuerzas para brindar a ustedes información actualizada sobre la enseñanza de la lengua inglesa. This morning, remarkable authorities have joined this Congress. Please greet PhD Rebecca Castellanos, Dean of UNAE, who will give us a warm welcome. Esta mañana nos acompaña la rectora de la Universidad Nacional de Educación, PhD Rebecca Castellanos, quien nos facilitará su mensaje de bienvenida. Señora rectora.
Al aire.
Muy buenos días, tengan todos. Quiero darle un saludo muy especial a la doctora Graciela Urías, nuestra vicerrectora de investigación y posgrado, al doctor Diego Cajas, el director de la carrera de Pedagogías de los Idiomas Nacionales y Extranjeros, al profesor Josué Abacuc y los demás representantes de la Red Ecuatoriana de Pedagogía, a nuestro querido profesor Ubaldo Resino, coordinador del Grupo de Investigación en Enseñanza de la Lengua Inglesa. Tuve el placer de ver dentro de los conferencistas principales a la doctora Susan Huss-Lederman, a quien conocimos hace unos años en la UNAE. Un saludo, Susan. A todos los participantes que tenemos en este evento de 9 países, como Estados Unidos, Bangladesh, Hungría, India, Reino Unido, Nueva Zelanda, Colombia, Perú y, por supuesto, Ecuador. Todos los que se encuentran hoy en este evento sean bienvenidos y tengan muy buenos días. Es un honor para la Universidad Nacional de Educación ser coauspiciante en esta primera conferencia internacional sobre la enseñanza de la lengua inglesa, conjuntamente con la Red Ecuatoriana de Pedagogía, institución con la cual nos unen unos lazos muy fuertes. Igualmente para mí es un privilegio poder ofrecer estas palabras en el acto de apertura en este importante evento, donde se analizarán los retos y oportunidades en la enseñanza y el aprendizaje de la lengua inglesa, y lo que considero muy importante es la reflexión sobre lo que significa el desafío de la enseñanza de la lengua inglesa en un mundo que es cada vez más interconectado y en el cual un bagaje importante del conocimiento científico de frontera, producto de investigaciones, se encuentra escrito en publicaciones en inglés. La categoría de este evento y la importancia de este tema se evidencia en los más de 1000 participantes y en las 20 ponencias y talleres y póster de los cuales se puede aprender y tener puentes entre los diversos investigadores y docentes que conforman este grupo de trabajo y que están presentes en este evento. Compartir las experiencias, hallazgos y validarlos desde la perspectiva de los otros investigadores es fundamental en actividades de este tipo. Sabemos que la ausencia de espacios de investigación, de intercambio y de reflexión pedagógica impiden los avances epistemológicos, así que esta es una oportunidad para todos. Revisando el programa, encontré algunos temas, como la posibilidad de concebir a los estudiantes como etnógrafos, sobre lo que va a hablar Susan, experiencias de promoción de la lectura en inglés a través de los entornos virtuales, la reflexión sobre los factores diversos en cada contexto que son concebidos como motivadores para el aprendizaje del inglés, y la influencia también de las creencias de los docentes en ese proceso de enseñanza-aprendizaje. Los estilos de los estudiantes, que es un tema siempre vigente, y su relación con las estrategias didácticas, son aspectos que se debatirán en este encuentro y que lo enriquecen como espacio de intercambio de saberes, de tejidos de redes de colaboración, de investigación y también de socialización entre los docentes y los estudiantes. No me queda más que desearles éxito en este evento en el cual la razón y la emoción se apoyan y se necesitan. Que tengan una muy feliz y productiva jornada. Buenos días.
Okay. Thank you so much, dear Dean Castellanos, for your kind words. Agradecemos a la doctora Castellanos por su gentil intervención. This Congress will last from the 6th to the 8th of May, and this is an online conference on innovative methodologies, strategies, and techniques to overcome the dilemmas educators face in the scheme of virtual learning. Este congreso se llevará a cabo del 6 al 8 de mayo y es una conferencia virtual que abarcará metodologías, estrategias y técnicas que intentan resolver los dilemas de los educadores que enfrentan en el contexto de aprendizaje en línea. In this moment, we will receive PhD Graciela de la Caridad Urías, Vice Rector of Universidad Nacional de Educación, who will talk about research and postgraduate studies of the UNAE. En este momento, es un placer recibir a la PhD Graciela de la Caridad Urías, vicerrectora de la UNAE. La doctora Urías nos hablará sobre la investigación y los estudios de posgrado de la UNAE. Doctora, por favor.
Muy buenos días con todos los participantes. Doctora Rebeca Castellanos, rectora de la UNAE, distinguidas autoridades, invitados, docentes, estudiantes, investigadores, todos muy buenos días. Con mucho placer me dirijo a ustedes desde el Vicerrectorado de Investigación y Posgrados de la Universidad Nacional de Educación. La investigación es considerada una actividad orientada a la obtención de hallazgos significativos que aumentan el conocimiento humano y enriquecen la ciencia. Tiene la capacidad de favorecer al desarrollo de habilidades, al descubrimiento de nuevos hechos con los avances de la técnica, la ciencia, la tecnología y el desarrollo del pensamiento científico. Si bien se perciben una diversificación de espacios en sitios de producción y gestión del conocimiento, es la educación superior la que ha de jugar un rol fundamental en la concepción y desarrollo de investigaciones, pues en ellas se encuentran las personas más idóneas y experimentadas para compartir el acervo de saberes, guiar la búsqueda de a quienes comienzan su formación profesional y servir como apoyo al progreso de la nación. Actualmente, la política educacional universitaria se ha replanteado las prácticas pedagógicas, didácticas, investigativas para perfeccionar en función de la preparación de los docentes y los egresados, según los retos que se deben asumir en pleno siglo XXI. En concordancia con lo antes expuesto, la educación en el Ecuador ha realizado un progreso acelerado en la investigación científica en las universidades. Se han promovido en los últimos años modelos que potencian estrategias educativas dedicadas a elevar los estándares académicos en el marco de los nuevos retos y formar investigadores desde la propia concepción del currículum de las universidades. Estas transformaciones en la educación superior han llevado a la construcción de un modelo didáctico diferente a partir de 2008, potenciando la investigación en las universidades como nunca antes había ocurrido. Según Ayala, en el 2015, este modelo ha estado dirigido a superar el estado de las universidades ecuatorianas, pues hasta la década del 70, las universidades tenían como único objetivo fundamental la docencia y el componente investigativo era casi nulo. Dentro de este concepto, en el 2015 nace la Universidad Nacional de Educación para formar docentes investigadores. La misión de la UNAE está dirigida a contribuir a la formación del talento humano del sistema educativo ecuatoriano para la construcción de una sociedad justa, equitativa, libre, democrática, generando modelos educativos de excelencia, caracterizados por el rigor científico con un enfoque de derecho y de interculturalidad. Dentro de los objetivos fundamentales de la Universidad Nacional de Educación encontramos, y cito, formar investigadores y desarrollar investigación educativa para generar conocimientos pedagógicos y fundamentar la política educativa y su gestión. Ahora bien, ¿cómo nosotros formamos los docentes investigadores en la UNAE? Bueno, nuestro modelo pedagógico tiene dentro de sus elementos esenciales la investigación como un método de enseñanza-aprendizaje. Nuestro diseño curricular, desde el primer ciclo hasta el último, tiene un campo de formación dedicado a la preparación de los estudiantes en la investigación educativa, donde los estudiantes vinculados a las prácticas preprofesionales desde su primer ciclo van investigando la realidad escolar y reflexionando teóricamente sobre ella. Y por lo tanto, desde su primer ciclo se comienzan a formar como docentes investigadores. Ahora bien, ¿cómo nosotros hemos potenciado y desarrollado la investigación científica dentro de la UNAE? Desde que comenzamos, tanto docentes como estudiantes, tenemos como modo de actuación profesional investigar nuestras prácticas para proyectar mejoras en función de la calidad y así transformar nuestra realidad educativa. El cumplimiento de la misión y los objetivos propuestos por nuestra universidad ha llevado que en estos momentos contemos con 12 grupos de investigación, 10 grupos académicos para un total de 22 grupos, 30 proyectos de investigación, 91 docentes vinculados a ellos y 80 estudiantes insertados en los diferentes grupos y proyectos de investigación. Dentro de los grupos más consolidados en nuestra universidad encontramos el grupo de investigación de la enseñanza de la lengua inglesa, integrado por docentes investigadores de la carrera de la pedagogía de los idiomas nacionales y extranjeros, como nosotros lo llamamos familiarmente PINE, y además el Centro de Idiomas de la Universidad Nacional de Educación. El grupo ya tiene más de 3 años de creado, por lo que posee un trabajo consolidado. Y este evento científico es una muestra de ello. Tiene proyectos de investigación aprobados y otros que están en proceso de aprobación. El grupo de investigación tiene como objetivo investigar la enseñanza y aprendizaje del inglés en la educación básica general y en el bachillerato técnico unificado de la zona 6 del país en general, también internamente dentro de nuestra universidad. Dentro de los resultados científicos más relevantes que tiene este grupo y que aquí se discutirán en este congreso, está la caracterización de los factores que impiden o facilitan la enseñanza-aprendizaje del idioma inglés en la escuela básica y en el bachillerato en la zona 6, con una investigación exploratoria que han llevado a cabo con mucho rigor científico. Ya tienen 15 artículos publicados en revistas con rigor, con altos estándares, y también 4 libros que ya también están publicados. Hoy nuestra universidad se viste de gala, se viste de lujo con la inauguración de esta primera conferencia internacional, Retos, Oportunidades y Reflexiones de la Enseñanza de la Lengua Inglesa 2021, en la que se presentarán talleres, ponencias, póster sobre temas tan importantes como, por ejemplo, las adaptaciones curriculares, la evaluación formativa, la práctica docente, la gestión en el aula, el manejo del aula y sobre todo las propias condiciones de virtualidad de la enseñanza en que estamos trabajando. Por lo tanto, son temas de gran actualidad y gran interés a nivel internacional. Felicitamos a docentes, investigadores, estudiantes y participantes en general por estar aquí con nosotros en esta primera conferencia. Le damos una calurosa bienvenida y le deseamos muchos éxitos en los debates científicos que se generarán en este importante espacio de discusión académica y científica. Muchísimas gracias, muchos éxitos y que tengan una linda jornada de trabajo. Muchísimas gracias.
We would like to give a special thank you to the UNAE authorities who have been constantly supporting and encouraging professors and researchers. Queremos dar un agradecimiento especial a las autoridades de la UNAE, quienes constantemente han estado apoyando y motivando a su personal docente e investigador. Dear Congress attendees, please welcome PhD Diego Cajas Quispe, Director of the Pine Major. Estimados asistentes, por favor, reciban al PhD Diego Cajas Quispe, director de la carrera de Pedagogía de los Idiomas Nacionales y Extranjeros. Doctor Cajas.
Buenos días a todos los participantes en esta conferencia. Primero me gustaría dar las gracias a nuestras queridas autoridades, nuestra rectora, doctora Rebeca Castellanos, nuestra vicerrectora Graciela, que siempre nos han apoyado y siempre nos han apoyado con todas la universidad y con todos los departamentos en todos los eventos que nosotros proponemos como carrera. También quiero agradecer a la REP, que junto con su ayuda se ha logrado este gran evento a nivel internacional. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the organizing committee and the Universidad Nacional de Educativa, UNAE, I am pleased to welcome all of you to the first core conference, Challenges, Opportunities, and Reflections in ELT in 2021. We are living in difficult times due to the pandemic caused by the COVID-19 virus, and education has been severely affected. As a consequence, the learning progress of our students has been delayed, and its negative effects will be manifested in our classrooms when we return to face-to-face classes. Last year, we teachers have been in the front line in innovating and adapting our teaching practices. We had to change our strategies from a face-to-face instruction to a virtual mode of education overnight. And most of the times, we made these changes without much institutional support or additional training. We had to turn our homes into classrooms. And despite our needs and problems, we have always been there for our students. It has not been easy, but trying different strategies and ways to maintain contact with our students shows how resilient and committed teachers are. We have looked for different ways to virtually connect to our students and continue with our classes. Some of us are using Zoom, Google Meet, Skype, Teams, WhatsApp, or any other applications that facilitates the synchronous contact with our students. During our virtual classes, teachers have been using countless online tools and strategies to facilitate learning, practice English, and keep the students' motivation high. However, most of these techniques and activities are neither disseminated nor shared. Thus, the importance of creating academic spaces where teachers can share their experiences and, at the same time, learn from our colleagues. This event aims to highlight different contributions in ELT done at a national and international level in the areas of curriculum, assessment and evaluation, teaching practices, and classroom management. These contributions are organized in 3 different blocks, namely research presentations, workshops, and posters. In research presentations, attendees will be able to know how different studies have positively impacted ELT. In the workshops, participants will learn and experience innovative techniques and activities to improve their teaching practice, and in posters presentations, pre-service students will showcase their research work. The presentations are enriched with the experience and knowledge of our three keynote speakers, Dr. Susan Huss-Lederman, Dr. Magdalena Madani, and Master Janine Matz. I am sure that during these 3 years, your knowledge of ELT will be enriched and translated into good teaching practices that will in turn benefit our students. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to this big event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear Dr. Cajas, for your intervention. We want to remember you that in order to attend this Congress, you will have to go to evea.unae.edu.es, click on Pregrado, click on Access to Users with no SGA, and register with ID number as a username and the code provided to your emails. In case you have any problems, contact the technical committee of this Congress immediately. Participants will receive a certificate of participation for 40 hours, and to receive the certificate, you must have registered in the conference link before April 14th. Attend a minimum of 50% of the live presentation sessions through YouTube Live, and complete 8 short quizzes on the Moodle platform. During this day 1, we will have 6 research presentations and 4 workshops, and of course, the participation of our first keynote speaker, PhD Susan Huss-Lederman, University of Wisconsin-Whitewater from the United States. So in this moment, Caridad Ochoa will introduce Dr. Susan.
Would you like to visit Galapagos today? Good morning. Welcome to the keynote presentation of the first day of the conference, Challenges, Opportunities, and Reflections on ELT. My name is Caridad Ochoa. I'm a student in the 7th semester in the English language teaching major at UNAE. I'll be responsible for hosting this presentation today, and I'm happy to welcome Dr. Susan Huss-Lederman, who is Professor Emerita of Applied Linguistics and Teaching English as a Second Language at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater in the United States. Her research interest is the professional development of English teachers. Dr. Huss-Lederman has extensive experience of over 26 years in best practices to develop and improve the professional development of English teachers. Also, Dr. Huss-Lederman has served as a coordinator to develop the English program for sustainability for Galapagos. So, in this morning, she will present English for Sustainability, Preparing English Teachers in Galapagos. Please write your comments or questions in the chat, and at the end of her presentation, she will be responding your questions. Also, Susan wants to interact with you, so please check the description of the video where you will find some links to access. And now, here's our guest. So, Teacher Susan Huss-Lederman, let's start with the presentation.
thank you, Caridad, for such a thoughtful introduction. I will be putting up a slide presentation, and then I have a few introductory remarks before I begin. So Caridad gave a beautiful introduction, and I want to thank her, but I also need to give a special thanks to Dr. Diego Cajas and Dr. Hazel Acosta, who first introduced me to the UNAE community in 2016. In September is when we started to work together at a distance. And then Dr. Cajas sponsored me to come as an English language specialist to UNAE in September of 2017. And not a day goes by when I don't think very happily and respectfully on the friendships that I have developed with Dr. Cajas and Dr. Acosta and the way that they have opened up UNAE as a community for me professionally. So thank you very much. And thank you, Caridad, for the beautiful introduction and for your thoughtfulness and your enthusiasm in this Congress. I look forward to all of the presentations and think this is a wonderful opportunity to connect. The topic of my talk this morning is English for Sustainability, Preparing English Teachers in Galapagos. In this presentation, I will be sharing with you a brief overview of Galapagos, the Education for Sustainability Galapagos, or ESG program, and where ESG English fits into that presentation, place-based education for sustainability, and what we did during the Aprendemos Juntos en Casa Ministry of Education program in the last academic year, how we supported the teachers in the pandemic, and also future directions in contextualizing learning. Now, I'm showing a presentation here, but I also have a tablet open. Can someone from the REC confirm that people can see my slides presentation? Or do I need to, I bet I need to share it. Just one moment. I need to compartir. All right, I see what I'm doing. Let's see here, let me try again. Can people see that now? No. Let's see. The presentation is on air. Thank you very much. Super. All right. That's important. We need to be on air. All right. So as I've mentioned, we'll see the Galapagos, the education for sustainability, and the role of ESG English within that. Place-based education for sustainability. What my team did to support the Aprendemos Juntos en Casa program of the Ministry of Education in the last academic year, and our future directions in contextualized learning for Galapagos. But first, we are going to collaborate. I've planned for 3 opportunities for us to collaborate. And our first opportunity will be making a word cloud. I have some rules for you. First, the reason why we are doing this is so that we can share our understanding of what we think of when we think of Galapagos. So I want everyone, if it is possible, I'm going to show you a website to link to Mentimeter, and you will have opportunities to type in words and phrases that occur to you when you hear Galapagos. So this is probably easiest if you can do it on a cell phone. You will see, if you can see my phone, you'll look something like this, and you'll see there will be a list of places on fields where you can enter in words, and then there is a submit button at the bottom. But you do not have to submit 10 words. You can submit 1, you can submit 5, you can submit 20. You can submit as many as you want. You just have to remember to click submit when we do this. And you can do that when I say go. So, and you'll remember to click submit. So let me show you the website. You will go to www.menti.com and you will enter the code 62671847, and that will give you the space to enter in your words. And I will give participants 30 seconds to enter in words, and then we're going to watch it grow. I'm going to share the Mentimeter word cloud site where we can see this grow. So let me give everyone a minute or just a few seconds. www.menti.com. I can see that it's in the chat. Then 62671847 is the code for that. All right. So let me go to that site now. And we can put the Mentimeter site up. I'm sharing that now. And you see that the bigger words are words that many people are putting in. So I will give you 10 more seconds to put in words. Okay, so people are still going. It's okay to keep going, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I observed here. I'm observing that I saw one tiny word that said people and one tiny word that said tourism, but most of the words have to do with nature, animals, adjectives that describe Galapagos, that it's in Ecuador. And I think that this is what most people think of when they think of Galapagos. They think of the nature. They think of I don't see anything here about plants. They think mostly of the unique fauna or the unique endemic animals that live there. And I see one word, diversity. That's great. Paradise. That's great. That is what most people think of. But we're going to be talking today about probably the most impactful endemic invasive species to Galapagos, which is the human being. And we're going to look at why it's important that education in Galapagos helps young people become conservators of where they live, because human beings have had a great impact on Galapagos. So I think I am back on the slide program now. We need to think about the human history in Galapagos. So first, Galapagos started to be formed 5 million years ago. That is when this volcanic archipelago began, 5 million years ago. It's actually quite a young archipelago. And more or less, the islands that we see today were finally formed a few thousand years ago. Then, actually, the first person to go to Galapagos was the Bishop of Panama, Fray Tomás de Belanga. He was on his way from Panama to Peru, and his ship shifted, and he wound up in Galapagos. And in fact, the professional development workshops that we have in the institutes are held at a nature school that is named after Tomás de Belanga on Santa Cruz. Then, in 1832, Galapagos officially became part of the Republic of Ecuador. This is celebrated in Galapagos every year, the anniversary. Perhaps internationally, the most famous person to visit Galapagos was Charles Darwin, who did his research on the origin of species related to observations he made about finches that populate the different islands of Galapagos. So let's look a little bit at the human impact on Galapagos. In general, people say that there are between 19 and 20 islands on Galapagos. 4 of them are populated. Santa Cruz Island is the most populated island, and it contains an airport that connects to mainland Ecuador. The provincial capital is San Cristobal, which also has an airport. So there are 2 airports, primarily for transporting people back and forth. The 3rd most populated island and the largest one is Isabela, which also has active volcanoes on it. And it's interesting to talk to the people who live in Isabela about the volcanoes. And the island with the smallest number of residents is Floreana. These are the 4 islands that have schools on them. Altogether, there are 127 islands and islets in Galapagos, and 4 of the 20 major islands are inhabited by humans. And that's in general because most of the islands, you couldn't support a human population there. They're very rocky. There isn't arable land on them for farming or for gardens. So these 4 islands are the most hospitable for human inhabitation. Now, the increase in human population went from 2,000 people in the 1960s to 30,000 people in 2019. So that is an amazing population explosion. Although the Galapagos was the first natural World Heritage Site, given an honor bestowed by UNESCO in 1978, in 2007, Galapagos was put on an endangered list, a natural environment endangered because of human beings. UNESCO removed Galapagos from that list in 2010, but international researchers of UNESCO made the recommendation, among several recommendations, that the island schools must improve education efforts for sustainability. The educational infrastructure of Galapagos includes 20 schools on the 4 islands that are populated. Most of them are centered in urban areas on 3 islands. So Floreana is very small, and Floreana has 1 school group for a very small number of students. There is 1 intercultural bilingual school serving the Salasaca community, which is on the island of Santa Cruz. So let's ask ourselves, what does education for sustainability mean? We can define it like this. Victor Nollet, an educational researcher, defines it as education for sustainability seeks to equip learners to deal with the kinds of challenges that arise from the interconnectedness of environment, culture, society, and economy. So these 4 areas for a sustainable socio-ecosystem. So a socio-ecosystem is an ecosystem that includes society or includes people. The goal of the Education for Sustainability Galapagos project is to help teachers develop their capacity in high impact educational practices and to integrate sustainability principles across all subject areas in order to prepare youth to become stewards of place. So if we are going to follow what UNESCO has offered us, it's to, or suggested to us, it's to make sure that young people are able to take care of where they live and to live in a sustainable way with nature. So I am now going to ask our colleagues at REP to show this video. It's 4 minutes long, and it will tell you the perspective of one of our professional development specialists on the Education for Sustainability Galapagos program, which is supported by the Galapagos Conservancy, an organization based in the United States, a Galapagos-based organization, Fundación Silesia, which focuses on environment and education, who have an agreement with the Ecuadorian Ministry of Education to offer this professional support for its teachers. The English part of this program is funded by the U.S. Embassy in Quito and some private donors who support the Galapagos Conservancy. So please, Stalin, if you are there, if you could begin this, show this video.
The overview of the program right now is to provide instruction for the teachers so that they are able to relate what they're doing in the classroom to their own environment. One thing that I've seen here is that I see that the teachers are really engaged. They come with a lot of preparation, they're driven, they really want to do this, and it's very humbling to see that they already have all this knowledge and they are ready to apply it. So our job here is to provide a little bit more structure and provide strategies that are research-based. And one thing that we try really hard to do is to basically match their needs. So we have looked really carefully at all the standards that the Ecuadorian Ministry of Education is trying to put in place so that our activities are closely aligned to what they need to do in the classroom. So that way it helps them with the daily classroom instruction. What we give them is basically tools to implement those objectives, or as they call them here, those destrezas, so that they can take tools that they can implement right away into the classroom and in their daily basis. One of the best things of being here at Galapagos is that we are surrounded by this unique setting that I cannot think of a better classroom than this. So for science and even for math and for all the other subjects that we're teaching, we're in a very unique setting where we have our classroom around us, where we can walk out and teach about leaves and teach about plants and teach about the different animals that are around here, teach about land formations, and we are able not only to see that, but we are also able to see how we can transfer knowledge about conservancy and conserving what it's around us and create lessons that are not only using the big classroom around us, but also that promote sustainability of all those resources and this wealth of resources that we have around us in Galapagos Islands.
Thank you. Thank you. I can make these videos available also to the coordinators of the Congress. They are all subtitled as well, if you want to use them again and with subtitles. You can see now, here's a picture of one of our very first cohort groups. Perhaps you see some of the UNAE professors. Here is Veronica Herrera. Agi Oros is in the back. We are always in the back because we are tall. I see Hazel Acosta. I think probably from that first setting that is it. But this is how we came about. On July 14th, I joined a group of international educators to conduct a needs assessment, which the Galapagos Conservancy refers to as the listening phase, to talk with students, parents, school directors, ministry people who were regional, and also community members about what people's opinions were for developing the educational experiences of students in Galapagos. And one of the areas that emerged very strongly was that English was to be a priority. And so that happened in July 2014. So an agreement was signed later on, and then some planning took place on how that would happen. In October of 2017, there was a pilot English institute that included field trips that was facilitated by local educators in Galapagos. But then in June of 2018 through October of 2019, the Galapagos Conservancy was able to receive support from the US Embassy in Quito to fund professional development for English teachers. And so faculty from UNAE and from educational institutions in the United States joined the local facilitator, Maria Jose Reichenbach, in preparing a program of professional development for English teachers. These include week-long intensive institutes. Teachers are working for 50 hours per week in those face-to-face institutes. It is complemented by in-class observations between institutes. So Dr. Hazel Acosta and I have worked with teachers between the institutes. Maricela Cajamarca has worked with teachers. All of us have worked with teachers between institutes. Vero Herrera and I as well, Agi Oros, all of us have worked with the teachers between the institutes in the classroom. There's also mentoring. There are 3 mentors who work with teachers across the islands, helping them talk about teaching in the same language, figuring out how they want to improve. There are also líderes pedagógicos, pedagogical leaders of teachers who do peer support and are involved in the trainings. Because if you want to institutionalize change, you can't always have it from the outside. You need to make sure that the cohort of teachers and administrators are also agents of their own change and in maintaining the change that will improve education. The teachers also participate in learning circles, which are learning communities where teachers discuss some of the issues that they are confronting in their classrooms and addressing in their classrooms. Our English Institute workshops model communicative teaching techniques, classroom management, formative assessment, active learning, contextualized lesson planning, and applying the Ecuadorian English curriculum to the Galapagos context. And you can see in the picture on the slide, maybe some of you, if you are a student at UNAE, made these costumes. Agi Oros wrote a storytelling role play about overfishing in Galapagos, and some of the students at UNAE created the costumes, which we left in Galapagos. So it turns out that the school where we were holding these institute workshops is also visited by people who are on cruises in the Galapagos. It's one of the, when National Geographic sponsors or has a cruise, one of the places they visit is this school. So there were some young English-speaking children, little children, they were maybe 7 or 8 years old, who loved watching the English teachers perform this play. It was one of the highlights of their land trip. The children just loved it. We also work on classroom management, and I'd like to share with you quickly a management technique that I think is very useful when you have a larger group of students who are collaborating together, if they're sitting together. One of the things that I noticed when I was in Galapagos is that the classrooms are long and narrow, and there may be 35 students in an English class. And if the teacher does not circulate, if the teacher does not engage students, they are not engaged. So this is a classroom, this is a management technique that I think is very useful for large classes. It's called numbered heads together. So in numbered heads together, first, the teacher arranges the students in small groups, and each group is named. I usually, when I do this, I have the students name their groups, and I might give them a category and say, okay, I want you to name yourselves after animals. Your group has to come up with an animal name. And so, you know, Galapagos students like this, they'll come up with a name of an animal, maybe a flamingo or a booby or a ray or a sea lion. They'll come up with a name for their group. Each group has the same number of students in the group, and each student has a number. So then you have to make sure that everyone can identify. So you might say, okay, flamingos, stand up. Giant tortoises, clap your hands. You want to make sure they can identify. And then you say, okay, everyone who's number 1, raise your hand. Everyone who's number 2, wave your right hand. Something like this so that they know where they are. And a teacher can also decide if these groups are going to be groups for a long time, like maybe for the month, everyone is going to be in this particular group, or if it's a group for the day. But one of the most important things about this technique is that students know when they go into group work, they're going to be accountable to the whole group. So this isn't something just to do one time. This should be something, this is one of your ways of managing a group. Then the teacher may ask the group a question. Maybe they're learning something and the teacher wants to check their comprehension and understanding. Maybe it's a game. So the teacher asks a question and gives the students an opportunity to discuss possible answers in the group. So this means that the students have to be ready. All students have to be ready to answer. Then the teacher calls out a group name and a number. Or perhaps the teacher just calls out a number because all of the groups, the number in all of those groups are going to respond. So the point is that no one knows who's going to have to speak for the group. Only the teacher knows who's going to have to speak for the group. So everybody has to be ready. This is a great example of using this kind of technique for classroom management, but it's also formative assessment. The number of students must answer, and a teacher can keep track of what students say. So this works very well. One of our teachers, Peggy, uses this technique a lot. She really feels like it helps her manage small group activities and make sure everyone is engaged. So that's called Numbered Heads Together. It is developed by Himley and Himley, a husband and wife professor team in Pennsylvania in the United States. But they worked for many years as EFL teachers in Latin America and as bilingual teachers and ESL teachers in the United States. For when we go into the classroom as facilitators from the workshops, when we go into classrooms, one of the things that we do is listen to teachers. They share a lesson plan or a lesson idea with us. They give us the context of the lesson. We observe the lesson, and then afterwards we reflect and have feedback. And I want to show you a tool that Aggie Oros and I came up with for friendly feedback. So let me go back. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to go to, I guess, this. And let's see, I've got to. I'm still getting the hang of sharing well. Okay, and people should see this in a minute. It's a single point rubric. The single point rubric has been adapted here for English teaching. I'd like to share the screen. It should come up. Yes, thank you. This in the single point rubric, and by the way, you can use a single point rubric for managing other. This is not just for teachers. In a single point rubric, in the middle of the rubric, the rubric has 3 columns. In the middle of the rubric are the target goals that you have for your students, or the target goals, in this case, for teachers. On the left are areas for suggestions. If someone does not meet these targets, how can we help them? What are some suggestions that we have through talking with the teacher, and we come up with some of their concerns, things that we wish we had observed but maybe did not see. And strengths on the right. What did someone do very, very well that we want them to continue to do? So when I'm observing a teacher, I highlight in yellow what I see. I leave blank what I do not see. And then I make some suggestions and I note some strengths. So good teaching, giving clear instructions, leading by example, being fair, etc. At the end of the reflection period, the teacher receives this document. I take a picture of it to see what I've shown the teacher, and I can also use this, as can the other facilitators, as a type of needs assessment to plan for the next institute. So if we see that in common, there are some areas of growth that we need to work on, we can use this. Also, if we see strengths, we can compliment the teachers on that, and we can invite teachers to share their strengths at upcoming institutes, things we've seen that have gone very well. And I will be sharing with you a couple of examples of practices that teachers in Galapagos have used with their students that will make you very proud of them. So this is called a single point rubric because the single point is the middle column. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to go back to the presentation. Another thing that we do with our teachers is take field trips to explore and learn the environment and to speak English. Let's come back on air to the PowerPoint presentation, please. Okay, some of the places we have gone include the City Recycling Center on Santa Cruz, and talking with the sustainability manager of the city of Puerto Ayora, which is the largest community in Galapagos. We visited several organic farms. We've taken community walks, and we've conducted also a beach cleanup as well. I would like us to hear from English teacher Fernando Hernandez, and por favor, los subtítulos en este caso, cuando observamos a Fernando, los subtítulos. Please show the video. Again, this is about 4 minutes long.
Fernando, can you tell me why you thought the field trip was so special? It was so special because we were inside the field, and we feel that we were learning, we were touching, and we were watching what happened in the field. It's different when you are in the classroom, inside the classroom, and you go to the field. When we went to the field, it was exciting because we saw something on the classroom, and when we arrived there, we feel like we were inside the problem. We were touching the problem that we have to solve as human beings. It was really nice, this kind of experience, and it was everyone were excited, and I was excited too. It is a very nice experience for me to go to the field trip and to have that kind of experience that is not only inside the classroom. There is something that we have to solve, and sometimes it's in the field.
Can you tell me what problem you were looking at yesterday?
Yesterday we were looking for, we were talking and looking for the pollution inside Galapagos Island, but specified inside the small city or town where people live. There were a lot of trash and garbage inside in the street side and everywhere that people are living, but it was a lot of garbage, and we could see this problem inside the sea. We saw paper glasses, we saw napkin, we saw straw, we saw a lot of plastic around the city. In fact, people were walking, animals were walking where was the pollution, and it was very sad for me.
As an English teacher, do you think it's important to teach about where people live?
Yes, I think that the community have to know and have to feel what is changing, if it's positive or negative inside their environment. In fact, if they live in a place like a paradise here in Galapagos or everywhere, we have to know what is changing inside our community, inside our town, inside of our culture. It's very important to know and to solve if there is a problem, because we are human beings, we have heart, feeling, and we have the tools to solve the problem.
One more question for you. I noticed that you were singing some songs. Can you tell us about the songs you were singing?
Okay, we were singing song about don't use plastic. Sometimes it's very nice when you can teach to people, kids, and to everyone, to teach them that there is a problem, and maybe using a song. Maybe people could remember that we were using a song. We were singing with the teacher about don't use plastic, no anymore. And a lot of tourist people and a lot of people around that they were walking, they stopped and they were listening to the music, and they say yes. It was just like we were saying to the world that something have to change, but it was not with a paper, it was not with any tool, it just was with singing, and it was really nice for me.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much, Fernando.
You're welcome.
To the let's go back to the presentation, please, the slide presentation. Okay, we're back at the slide presentation. So we heard from Fernando, who a wonderful teacher who's originally actually from Cuba, teaching on Isabella, very creative teacher. And he says that if humans create the problem, humans can solve the problem. And so, and he talks about the value of going into the field trip. So here's an example of another field trip that we did on the island of Santa Cruz. The teachers calculated how much plastic they use daily and annually. We were modeling the type of activity you could do with students. And I think we all know as language teachers that numbers, for some reason, are very difficult for people to remember. It's hard to use numbers out of sequence. It's hard to understand prices of things. It's hard to use numbers effectively to tell time. It's very difficult. And so this activity was quite interesting. The teachers had a worksheet that had different categories of types of plastic that people often use for daily use. And although plastic drinking straws are banned on Galapagos, uh, and types of plastic bags are banned on Galapagos, you still see the use of plastic. So teachers completed this form, and we did some activities like lining up who uses the most plastic in a week, in a year, who uses the least amount of plastic, how much. So we were able to practice saying numbers. We were able to practice comparative and superlative. We did lineups of people. So the person with the least amount of plastic was first, the most amount of plastic was last. We could discuss what we could do to use less plastic in our lives. We were with a guide who does beach cleanup with tourists, and he volunteered his time to work with the teachers. And then before we went out to clean plastic at the beach, we performed a chant. I'll play the chant in a minute. We predicted what type of plastic we would find on the beach, and then we went and cleaned the beach, and we examined the trash. And I will tell you, we were very surprised by the type of trash we found on the beach. Most of it was blue wire, plastic wire from fishing nets. Could we please go to this 30-second video? Could the rep please play this video? It's about 30 seconds long, and you'll see the English teachers performing the chant about avoiding the use of plastic.
What should we do? Let's try slower. What should we do? What should we do? Should we use plastic bottles? Plastic bottles? No way! Should we use plastic cups? No way! No way! They pollute the sea.
Okay. So now we are back to the presentation. And I saw that there were some questions in the chat about working with teachers in COVID, working with students. We'll be doing that. And also there was a question about international baccalaureate programs. There have been 2 international baccalaureate programs in Galapagos, one on Santa Cruz and one on Isabela. I think that last year, due to budget constraints, those programs were suspended, but it would surprise me if they would be suspended forever. I think that parents and teachers really liked having the IB programs. And there were some interesting community, there was an IB program also on Isabela. There were 3 IB programs. I think that it's something that the communities there really value. So I hope that they will return. Now, I would like to talk to you about place-based education, which is a type of project-based learning, because Galapagos is moving toward project-based learning in a place-based context. And I'd like to explain some components of this to you. Then we will watch an 8-minute video that was created by students on the island of Santa Cruz in their 3rd year of bachillerato, so tercero de bachillerato, that puts some of these concepts into play. And I'm going to ask you to observe the video and to make comments about what you observe. But we're going to do that in a special way. That's just so you know. So place-based education means that you use the place where you live in order to learn concepts and ideas that affect the place, and to do projects that help you understand where you live, that ultimately have a relationship to the world beyond. And so place-based education in the Galapagos as a kind of project-based learning is really important, because it is a World Heritage Site. It's a very important biosphere. It's an environment that the world learns from and that the world visits. So this infographic about place-based education is very useful. Place-based education also helps us to personalize learning, to contextualize it to each learner. Students have what is called a voice and a choice. Students come up with ideas for projects. They discuss what they want to explore and learn about where they live and how they might implement it. Teachers tailor learning to each student's strengths, needs, and interests. So again, this is very much a learner-centered approach to education. The curriculum of the Republic of Ecuador holds students to high standards, and so projects about place include reference to those standards. So students, even if they are studying place, if the curriculum is contextualized to where they live, they still need to meet the national standards. It also promotes student agency or student autonomy. Students take initiative. So we're going to watch another video, and we're going to do it afterwards. You will participate in what's called a chat cascade. If some of you teach online, you might notice that if you open up a chat, not all of the students participate in the chat when you ask a question. Sometimes the same students who are quicker at that type of activity will answer first. And then the teacher says, "Come on, everyone. I want to hear from everyone." And well, the students may or may not respond. I read about this technique a couple of months ago, actually, the chat cascade. In a chat cascade, the teacher asks a question and gives the students a couple of minutes to think about how they're going to answer, to write it into the chat, and then when the teacher says go, everyone hits the enter key and submits their chat. So all of the chats come at the same time. And we're going to try that too. I am going to ask you, when I show this video from the Tercero de Bachillerato de Professor P.J. Andrade in a minute, I'm going to ask you to observe elements of place-based education. I'm going to ask Caridad to put those elements in the chat. You are going to look for some key features of place-based learning in the student project when you're viewing the video, and then you will prepare your chat post. But you will only enter it after I say go. You may not participate in the chat until I say go. And then we'll see all of the answers. So, Caridad, if you could put into the chat, where do people see voice and choice, where students have some control over what they study? Where do students showcase their strengths? Where do you see some students acting strong? Do you see students meeting high academic standards? And do students show agency, capable of acting on their own? This is what you are looking for when you watch the video. Rep, could you please show the video? And Caridad, could you please put these categories to look for into the chat? But no one should write in the chat until I tell you to after the video. Or no one should press enter in the chat. If you want to write in the chat while you're watching the video, it's okay. But do not press enter until I let you do it. Okay, please, Rep, show the video.
Kilometers for Porto Ayora. We have to go through the whole Santa Cruz Island to arrive there. Sarita, what do you think about it?
It is going to be a long trip, but we are sure we will enjoy it.
Would you like to join us?
Let's go!
Let's go. we've arrived to Cerro Mesa. We are really excited because it's been a long time that we haven't visited this place.
Cerro Mesa is a private ecological reserve that belongs to Heria family.
Look at the astonishing landscape. Blue sky mixed with green fields. You can breathe nature.
Look there, we can see Baltrac.
Avoid climbing the pear trees or plucking any of the ferns that make up a beautiful meadow near the hill. Climb until arriving to the hill's peak, stand up in the front of the landscape and feel the airstream running around you. Enjoy the view of the sea, several islands and islets almost close to you. In the other side, you can see the highest point of the island, Cerro Crocker. The hill is not the only attraction in Cerro Mesa Reserve.
Also, Cerro Mesa is not the most popular landmark in Santa Cruz Island. It offers many activities to do.
If you walk a few minutes following a path, you'll be in front of a different scenario.
Going down into the crater is also an option, but the experience is as entertaining as dangerous. So if you're keen on extreme activities, you can go for this, but be careful.
If you want to capture the experience thanks to the technology, it's sure that taking pictures will become an available action. Flashing lights emitted by some electronic device are authentic threat to some species of birds which you can find. Finches, vermilion flycatchers, mockingbirds, and brown newts. This lava crater was created thousands years ago by the collapse of an antique volcano that used to rise in this location.
Although it doesn't contaminate the soil, it affects to the aesthetic part of the place.
Okay, let's take a look at the slide. I want you to, everyone to type in where you see voice and choice, these 4 areas, but do not press enter until I say go. I will give you 1 minute to write down what you have observed. Start writing in the chat. In 1 minute, I will tell you enter. You have 30 seconds. And I also want you to know that I noticed that the teacher of these students, PJ Andrade, is also attending this Congress. I saw his name in the chat. So maybe he will also tell us something. I don't know if he could put something in the chat about being the teacher of these wonderful students. 10 seconds. 5 seconds. Ready? Everyone press enter into the chat. I'm seeing lots of things happening here. So Professor Ubaldo is saying shows physical abilities at the same time they develop their communicative competence in English. Excellent. The different recommendations about soil. Yes, they're using advanced language. PJ Andrade asked the students to use certain vocabulary. He gave them a vocabulary list and certain parts of the conditional when making recommendations and when making commands using the conditional. But he left the choice for making the video completely up to the students. And he chose, for each of his groups, he chose students who would be strong leaders in the group to coordinate the group. And there were rules about student participation so that everyone had to participate. But when I met his students, they were so excited about having done this project. It was really impressive. Video was very interesting about, voice and choice. So you saw the voice and choice, yes, because they chose what they were doing and how to put it together, right? And let's see, Heidi is saying places, they showed their language and physical abilities, talked with academics, they worked independently to achieve the goal. Exactly. So this was fantastic. I interviewed PJ about what class. And he said, all the time in the workshops, we learn about sustainability. And it is a topic I have never used in my class before. I only used books, but not anything about Galapagos and conservation. So the institutes have inspired me to use these kinds of topics in my class, which is important because our students live in this fragile ecosystem. It's important to know about it. Now, in the chat earlier, some people had asked, I think that Dr. Julia had asked about what we're doing in this program to help teachers during COVID-19, the Aprendemos Juntos en Casa project. I'd like to shift our attention to that now. So as you know, the ministry first sent weekly, then monthly instructional packets that the teachers had to prepare and also submit the microcurricular planning. It was very stressful for our teachers. And the internet connectivity on Galapagos is very sporadic. It's not reliable. And a lot of families don't have more than one computer. They may only have a phone. So a lot of instruction was done with the paper packets from the ministry that teachers shared with families. And a lot of the work actually was done on WhatsApp, where teachers of children in the younger grades, so inicial, preparatoria, elemental, the teachers are actually working directly with the parents. And then I'd say from media through bachillerato, teachers were more directly addressing the students. And as all of you know, it was a tremendous challenge. The ministry suggested interdisciplinary projects, but this is a challenge to work in an interdisciplinary way as teachers at a distance. I'll come back to that in a minute. But we supported teachers in contextualization. So taking the ministry materials and working with them in a way that made sense for young children learning English, middle school year children learning English, teenagers learning English. There was not always a lot of support in the English materials themselves for this. We created a Google site. I think I have some time here because the next presentation is not until 10. I can show you a bit about the Google site, where we had adaptations and suggestions for developing the materials from the Ministry of Education and to help students do some oral language practice, because so much of the materials were paragraphs for students to read or matching activities. And we wanted our students to be able to make English personal in some way. We have since 2018, we've had a WhatsApp group chat for all of the English teachers across the islands, and teachers communicate with each other and share. One of the great things about having the institutes in person before COVID-19 is that teachers who might not normally know each other, because the islands, they're far apart. If you go by boat from one island to another, it's several hours in a boat. But because all of the teachers came together for institutes, they know each other by name and they could communicate with each other across islands through the chat. There were virtual learning circles that were held to help teachers implement the materials that were sent by the ministry. So we were able to work with teachers on an ongoing basis. Oh, let me go back to this. Also, the ministry materials, several of the facilitators, we made recordings, audio recordings that the teachers could use with their classes. So reading things out loud, creating chants as models for teachers to do. So sometimes creating things that the teachers could use directly that we made as audio support, but also teachers took that on themselves, of course. Sometimes we would demonstrate something to do, but anything to help them. I'm going to stop sharing this for a minute just to show you what some of the teachers, some of the things that we had available for teachers on our website. So please share the website. Thank you. So this is an example. We have a very creative teacher, Sandra Ugules, on San Cristobal, and she did a lot of activities with her students related to self-care. And so we would highlight if teachers did a beautiful practice, we would highlight it with an example on the teaching tips part of our website. So one of the things that she did was had students create gratitude jars, and the students would every day they would write something they were grateful for, and they would read it and share it on WhatsApp. So that was one example. One of the teachers who earned his master's degree at Casas Grande shared how he used Padlet. We encourage teachers to attend the different online workshops. This is a mood tracker. A teacher had students keep for a month their moods. They color-coded the moods. They wrote about how they were feeling and would share that. So this was one of the things that we did on the ESG English site. We're updating this site now to make it to have more of a graphic interface. I'll be coming back to this site in a bit. I'm going to stop sharing this now and go back to the presentation. So now I'm sharing the presentation again. And during January of 2021, we conducted a virtual institute, a week-long institute for the teachers. Okay, let's share the screen. Yes, thank you. And at this institute, we modeled project-based learning based on the ministry materials under the topic of climate change. And we helped the teachers contextualize instruction in an interdisciplinary way. So teachers were all working on the same topic and sharing ideas to teach in an interdisciplinary way. This was a kind of experiment. Hazel Acosta for English focused on just-in-time formative assessment using technology tools. And I focused on meta-linguistic awareness through bridging. So how do we develop this? This is a part of CLIL, Content and Language Integrated Learning. And because so much scientific vocabulary in Spanish and English relies on cognates, it's possible for students to learn a concept in a class in Spanish, but the English teacher can help students understand that in English. So I'd like to show you an example for language transfer and metalinguistic awareness through discovery. We'll see this on the next slide here. So here's an activity, words that look similar. It explains cognates. And the student starts with a small list of English words, visit. And what do they think the Spanish word is? Oh, visitar, marine iguana, iguana marina, human, humano, animal, animal, problem, problema. So in this way, the student is applying what they know about Spanish to understand English. So this is supporting a learner autonomy. And then the second, okay. The second one is to work with new vocabulary, again, a matching. And the teacher can supply an audio where they share the difference between English and Spanish, where the students can think about the differences between English and Spanish, which mostly is some with spelling and pronunciation. And also in some of these cases, the modifier comes after the noun in Spanish, where it comes before the noun in English. Then the students engage in another set of pre-reading activities before they do a reading that includes all of the cognates. And again, when the teachers saw this in the workshop, they were saying to themselves, wow, my students could do this. This is a way for them to feel intelligent. This is a way for them to connect Spanish to English on their own. The teacher is not supplying a bilingual word list. The students are using what they know about Spanish to apply to technical English. So I want to know if I have a few more minutes. Can someone tell me if I have a few more minutes to conclude this? Yes. We can proceed to questions, or we could proceed to the Jamboard. What do you recommend? Okay. So okay. So we will do this. Okay. We're going to do a Jamboard activity. I'm going to I'm going to ask that this is shared in the chat, the Jamboard activity. So could we share that link? And I'll explain the activity. Okay. So the Jamboard is in the chat. Can everyone please open the Jamboard? If you are looking at the Jamboard, I can see people are joining it. If you are a student at UNAE studying to be an English teacher, you will go to Jamboard 2, and you will write down what ideas this presentation has given to you. If you are a teacher in Pine, or if you are teaching future English teachers at another university, you will use board 3. If you teach university students in general, if you are in the Constructo program only at UNAE, you will use number 4. If you are a teacher at a private English institute, please use 5. If you teach in a public or private school to children, adolescents, or teenagers, if you're a teacher outside of the university or an English institute, use 6. And if none of this describes you, please use 7. And you will use the little post-it note tool to put up your ideas. Okay, so please feel free to enter your Jamboard area. Okay, you can use the sticky note tool. And I'll just give you a minute. Okay, don't be shy. Use the sticky note tool and enter in what ideas this presentation has given you. Caridad, while people are doing this, I can take some questions. Are there some questions that I should answer? Gracias.
Thank you so much, Professor Susan. I hope you all enjoyed this brilliant presentation. So now Teacher Susan will answer some questions from our audience. So we have one similar question from Kevin Zambrano and Gabriela Sigüenza. So Teacher Susan, how can we extend or begin something similar in other places in Ecuador? Maybe in places where students can speak Quechua or Shuar. So how can we overcome the cultural, social, and environmental issues that we could face in those places?
Well, I think one thing that is very important, and let me just say, I can see from the chat that some people, now I'm starting to see people are able to add to the Jamboard, that there were so many people at once, it was difficult. But I
Yes.
think people can do that now. I think one of the very important things about studying the environment is finding people within the community, different organizations who do environmental work or who do community work, and making partners with them with the schools. Sometimes there are parents, sometimes there are other adults within the community, other organizations, and sharing your concerns with them so that education is not just in the school, but it's in the community. And I would say it's a very good idea to start small and to try something and see if it works first before trying something big right out of the box. To start something small and careful would be my suggestion for that. There are a lot of different organizations in Ecuador. There are a lot of universities that I'm sure there are people who would be connected with the public schools. So it's the idea that the school is part of a larger community.
So much, dear teacher Susan. So let's see if we can now the Jamboard activity, because
take a look.
There are many people there who are interacting now.
Oh, and so this is great. A lot of people like the ideas of the environment on Jamboard 2. Trying to see. It's important. I teach English at public-private school for students. It's important for students to develop skills about nature. It also helps students, if students are studying outside, it actually helps them feel calm. It's good for their social and emotional well-being to be outside. Give students voice and choice of activities to increase hot as well as critical thinking skills. Yes, the hots and the lots. Absolutely, it certainly does. So let's see what else people are saying. Yes, including the environment. Love working with environmental programs. Environment. Okay, a lot of people really like the environment part. There's a very funny little emoji there. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm glad. If anyone has any questions or concerns for me, I think that the conference organizers have my email address. I'm happy to respond to emails. In closing, I would like to thank the teachers who have been part of this project. That's Hazel Acosta and Aggie Oros from UNAE, Maria Jose Reichenbach, who is a teacher in Galapagos, Veronica Herrera and Maricela Cajamarca from UNAE, Danielle Sclafani from English Language Programs, the English Language Specialist, Jillian Connery from Southern Methodist University, Adeline De Angelis from the Experiment in International Living, and Richard Knob of the Galapagos Conservancy, as well as all of the wonderful English teachers in Galapagos, who, if you're watching, teachers, I send my love to you and thank you for the privilege of knowing you as a friend and as a facilitator over the past few years. Thanks to our supporters, the Galapagos Conservancy, the Fundación Scalesia, and the U.S. Embassy in Ecuador for supporting this English project.
Thanks again, Susan, for answering these questions and for the great presentation. And obviously, thank you all for attending today. We had a blessed day today, and we will continue with the next presentations now. So we hope you have learned from and enjoyed this presentation. So now, please go to the next link in the schedule and to watch the next presentation, and have a wonderful day.